Final Hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our best bets on a Canada game later in the hour. Jason Strudwick, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Steven Caldwell will join us. France is through on penalties over Portugal, so that's it for Cristiano Ronaldo. Your boy, it's come to an end. His European championship career is officially over.
Are you sad?
No, not in the least.
Not a huge...
You're not a fan of Ronaldo? You take it or leave it?
Take it or leave it.
Struddy, are you a Ronaldo guy?
I think he's an amazing player. I mean, I'm not that expert on soccer, but he's got to be one of the most talented players of all time.
Yeah, he's a great player.
Yeah.
He's
so you don't like
player.
the person? The person is what turns you guys off?
I have nothing against Ronaldo
ambivalent.
whatsoever. You have, you don't have a take. So you're not are you a Messi guy? Ronaldo guy, or you just couldn't care less? Maybe an Mbappe guy. Yeah.
I like Mbappe.
You're an Mbappe. You like the mask on Mbappe? Is that a thing for you?
Why is he wearing the mask? Because he broke his nose?
Yeah, I guess he's got a nose or nasal issue. It's like an old school Batman type of vibe. Like it's like, in the Batman stories where they'd wear like a suit and a mask, and you're like, I guess it's Batman. Like that's kind of
really
what it looks
old
like.
one where they had like, the music.
Yeah.
Da-na-na-na-na.
Like, he's always got the mask on.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a little bit weird, but Mbappe actually got pulled in extra time and obviously didn't partake in the penalties, but he wasn't needed in the penalties because France got past Portugal this afternoon, again, putting an end to Cristiano Ronaldo and the Portuguese. So we got England, Switzerland tomorrow. Like one thing I'm pretty certain of is that England will screw this up, right? I was having this conversation earlier. Like there are so many connections between the English national team.
The Leafs?
And the Leafs.
Isn't it 67
the Cowboys
since they
the last
won?
25 years? Yeah, I think it was 66 World Cup.
Oh, wow.
So I think they're actually ahead of the Leafs.
Ahead. Okay.
Yeah, the Leafs are ahead of them, I guess, in terms of the last championship. Gotcha. Now, the Leafs play every year, World Cups every 4 years, Euros every 2. But in terms of their history, the hype, how much attention they get, how much pressure's on them, how they get really close. Like, they survived the last round, and that's what it was in the round of 16. Like, they survived. But now they got Switzerland, where I wouldn't say they're a heavy favorite, but they're favored to win that. And then they probably play the Netherlands in the semis, and I'm not sure who would be favored in that match. Probably a pick 'em or close to it, but based on their history, it would suggest they'll probably find a way to stub their toe. Hopefully not, but
Struddy's a Cubs fan. They got through once.
See, isn't that? That's a good point. Right? 16, that changed everything, right, Strud?
You know what? It did, and they had a really good team and the manager. But I've always wondered about that. Like as a player, why do you feel like you carry the burden of the past with you? And because the team that is assembled now has nothing to do with what happened 50 years ago. And that goes for every team, whether it's, the English or it's the Leafs or whatever. I just never really, like, is it just continually, you're wearing that, you're carrying on. I just think you're a new team. Let's write our own story. I don't know if coaches don't talk about that or like, what do you guys think? I
agree with you.
It.
I don't believe for a second players, Jude Bellingham's like, man, I can't believe back in 72 they didn't get it done. Like, I don't think that would ever be a part of the program. Same thing with the Leafs. Like, they understand the history, but it doesn't affect you when the puck drops.
But do you think you might have a different swagger if you're playing for an organization that's won a ton?
See, that's an interesting question.
I don't know.
Like, we always discuss
part of that
culture.
Right.
I know, but do you understand that walking
like the
in,
Celtics?
Strud? Right. Or even just being in Boston. Yeah. Like, do you think it's intoxicating playing in Boston, understanding how much they win there, and that's the expectation?
And maybe it's because there's winning all around you, But you look at Florida; they've never won anything, right? Yeah. What was it? 3 trips to the Stanley Cup. They finally win it. So did they shed the curse or whatever you want to call it, or the bad juju they had, or is it just they got lucky? Like I want to believe when I'm on a player on a team that I come in and I control my fate, and our team controls our fate. I don't want to think that because of what happened, 12 years ago when I wasn't even on the team, and quite honestly, I was still, playing hockey with 7-year-old kids. Like, why is, I never get it. And I think it's unfair, I think, for players to have to carry that around.
Definitely.
And I think it's hard. It makes it harder. It's hard enough already to win.
Yeah.
Without carrying the history of a whole, and I'm not just saying this because this is every team that we can think of that has a situation.
I think it's carried on more by the fans that drive that narrative. Understandably. Like, if you're a fan of a team that hasn't won in like 50 years, you're probably bitter about that. And it's probably something you're going to want to see change at some point.
Yes.
But like if you donated hour after hour, day after day, week after week, year after year to a team, and you're just a massive fan, and it's never reciprocated, or it doesn't feel like it is, doesn't mean they're not trying, but that's just a fact. You've been living your life, and your favorite team hasn't won. That stings. I don't know. We got a guy on the line here that he knows about winning ball, right? He knows about playing for different organizations, and here he is, longtime Mariners second baseman, longtime MLBer, host of the Brett Boone podcast, joining us here on Overdrive. Again, there's Brett Boone. What's happening, Brett?
What's happening, guys?
Well, we're talking about players walking into, let's use baseball for an example, walking into a clubhouse. Could you feel the history of the team? Like if you walked into a new clubhouse and you knew that team hadn't won anything in 40 years, like would that resonate with you? Would you care? Would you, like, what's that like, the history of a team for a new player walking into a clubhouse?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily the history of the team. I think it's more of a culture that's created at the time that you're walking into that locker room. I'll give you a quick example. I played on some really good teams in Cincinnati in the mid-'90s. I got traded after the 98 season. I went to the Atlanta Braves. And that was in the middle of their 90s run where, it was kind of come in the new guys. It was myself. It was Brian, Jordan. And I remember the spring training meeting, and it was like one I've never seen before. And Bobby Cox basically laid it out. And he said to the new guys, Brian, Boone, you're in Atlanta now. We win every year. And it was kind of said matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember getting to the playoffs and when you get to the playoffs, you have to have a team meeting to go over the playoff shares. And is the clubhouse guy going to get a full share? And I'll tell you, that Atlanta Braves meeting was unbelievable. They were giving shares to the peanut lady. And I'm sitting there and I kind of raised my hand, and I said, Tommy Glavine's kind of running the show. He was the elder statesman there. And I said, Glav, are we going to have any money left for us? He's like, Boone, this is the way we do it. We win every year. We take care of our guys. And I raised my hand again. I said, I haven't won every year, but it was a culture. It was different. It was workmanship. Like it was bring your lunch pail to work. And Bobby's going to put the lineup up there. We're going to steamroll our opponent and we're going to go about our business and do it again tomorrow. And that was the first time culture really affected me. It's, I look at it in today's game, and not necessarily the most glamorous team, but a Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, year in and year out, and you can't even name half the roster. It seems like new year, they got a new roster. But whatever Kevin Cash and company has done down there, I think the new players that come in, they walk through that door in spring training, and it's like, no, it's not a matter. We go to the playoffs here. Now, they haven't won a World Series, but it's a winning atmosphere. Like we expect it. We don't hope. We don't hope to make a playoff run. That's already a foregone conclusion. It's pretty awesome if you can create that culture. But that's just a couple brief stories of my actual experiences in the game.
I'm just curious, what was it like playing for that staff? You had Smoltz, you had Glavine, you have Maddux. Like, is there a better experience for a position player than that?
What, that off season, I remember getting traded, and Oral Hershiser was a neighbor of mine at the time. And I remember him driving by my house, stopping, Boone, congratulations. You're going to get to go to the World Series this year. That's how it was back then. You say Braves, it was like, you're going to the World Series. The first thing I thought, to be honest, thank God I don't have to face those guys anymore. They're on my team.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So.
Yeah, I mean, that staff resonates maybe more than any other that I can think of in a long, long time in terms of that three-pack and Smoltz. And I saw Smoltz actually talking about a crazy Tony Gwynn stat about how the three of them faced him like over 300 times, and they only struck him out like 4 times combined. I think Maddux never struck him out. And you mentioned that, like, when you face a pitcher that just has that aura of him, let alone 2 or 3 in a rotation, if you're going into Atlanta back in the day and it lines up where it's Maddux into Glavine into Smoltz, like, by the
way, it always did.
It always did, I guess, right? Like, how do you game plan for that?
I was dying for a Kent Merker. Please give me a Steve Avery, give me a Denny Nagel,
right,
who all are great pitchers. But when it came to that staff, it was Maddux, it was Smoltz, it was Glavine, and it was a day and age where we didn't have our iPhone. We didn't have everything at our fingertips. So we were big USA Today guys. We'd be on the road. And I remember getting my USA Today slid under the hotel, and I'd pick it up, and I'm like, all right, I know we go to Atlanta in 2 weeks. So I'd start, who's pitching tonight? All right, Maddux is pitching tonight. Okay, I'd start counting the days. All right, he's off. Now, and I'd get to that day where whatever team I was on landed in Atlanta, and it always seemed like it would go Merker, Maddux, Smoltz, Glavine. And it seemed like it was that every time I'd go. The thing that made those guys so great is they were all bona fide number ones. It didn't matter who you put out front, but they all did it in a different way. I look at Glavine he had a changeup other than Trevor Hoffman, probably the best changeup I've ever seen, definitely from a lefty. And it just seemed like it never got there. And then you had Maddux, who was he was a technician. I mean, he was a dart thrower that could, it was ridiculous. He's the best I've ever seen, top to bottom, as far as entire career. So consistent. Like a bad day for him was giving up 2 runs. And then you get to Johnny Smoltz, which is more of an over-the-top fastball slider, but he had a tough time picking up the spin. So they were all bona fide number ones, but they all did it so differently. That made it extra tough for an opponent, especially, the hitters.
We're chatting with Brett Boone. I'm curious, like you mentioned back in your day, there wasn't the iPhones, the iPads. Now you see them, they're in between pitches. Guys are like, all right, what happened there? And that's modern day sports. You see it in every single sport. Anyone that gets to the sideline, immediately they're like, all right, iPad, I want to see what happened there. Right. Do you think you'd be comfortable with like that access, like constant access? And is it possible that players are just being exposed too much to technology information? And, every pitch is going to be a little bit different. Every scenario is going to be a little bit different.
I can definitely see that. And I've talked to a few players recently, and I came up with this. I said, sometimes too much information in the wrong hands can be a detriment to what you're trying to do. Now, that being said, I'm a little bit envious. A lot of things that have changed in the game, I kind of like them the way when we were playing, how they work. But there are some things going forward that I'm kind of envious. Like, man, I wish that we had that in our day. I was just having a conversation with my son, who's in the minor leagues, and talking about how tough it is to get intel on the starting pitching tonight. I said the minor leagues is tough because there's so much turnover. If you do well, you're not going to be in that league next year. If you don't do well, you're going to get released. So you really don't have that familiarity with the pitchers. And I said, Jake, even in my early 2000s, I think it was 2003 where we finally went to the computer, where the guy that was the head of our film room for all our data, we could actually pull it up on the computer. But up until 2003, I was shoving the VCR tape in, trying to get some intel on the last time I faced this guy, or no chance getting any bullpen footage. I mean, that just wasn't a thing when I played. And I see what they have at their fingertips today, and I'm envious, because I'll tell you, I could pull into a city the night before, say it's a 3-game set. I'm going to see the last 2 starts of all the starters I'm going to see. I'm going to see that starter the last time I faced him. How did he go at me? And then I can run through that entire bullpen and get as much as I want. I can sit in my room for an hour, and I've done all my homework. I've got that in my mind. And for me, I was a big video guy. I needed to see it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they have that today, I think it's awesome. Yes, it can be a detriment, though, when you get too caught up, especially when you're not swinging well and everything is just go to the iPad. Oh, what am I doing? Sometimes it's just throw it away and just go out there and play the game that you've been playing your whole life. Because we tend to, especially when you get to the major leagues, we tend to be so technical and oversimplify a game that when we were having the most fun in our lives playing it, it was simple. So sometimes simple is better, but I think having those tools at your disposal, I think it's definitely something I would have taken advantage of.
So, Brett, with all the analytics, and you talk about the video and all that information, who do you think has had a greater improvement on getting that information, the pitchers or the batters?
Oh, hitters are always much smarter than the pitchers. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Of course.
These guys are so dumb. No, I'm
Would
kidding.
Maddux say that?
He was one of the exceptions. You got to know who your opponent is as a hitter. Now, your average, I've got to take everything into consideration when I'm going to the plate. Who's this guy I'm facing? Is he scared of me? Is he just got called up from AAA? Is he on the bubble? because those guys that have a lot going on in their life, they're so worried about the next pitch, they don't pay attention to anything else. Guys like a Maddux, guys have been around, technicians. No, he's playing that chess match with you. So you got to know who your opponent is. I'll go deeper than that. You got to know who's catching, what fingers they're putting down, because a lot of times that pitcher's riding with the catcher, and I've got to, there's a little warfare that goes on. I'm trying to think of the Jason Varitek. I go to Boston, and I had to play a game with him because I knew I was going up. Okay, bases loaded. I might be sitting on a breaking ball. I get a fastball first pitch. Jason's first thing, he'd look at me, put his mask up. Hey, Boone, I guess you're not looking for a fastball. Uh-oh, game's on. So I have to know who I'm dealing with. A lot of guys, I can go up there my first at bat, get a hanging curveball, hit one in the seats, and that pitcher on the mound will just completely abandon the curveball. So it makes my life easy. You face a guy like a David Wells who could throw me a fastball down the middle. I could hit one off the facade. And my next at bat, he'll throw me 3 fastballs down the middle. I'll be shaking my head and he'll go, dummy. He was out thinking me. So you got to know who your opponent is.
We're chatting with Brett Boone. Jays in Seattle tonight. When you broke into the league, that was the Jays' heyday back in 92, 93. And, we kind of take pride in that. Yeah, as Canadians, like the amount of Jays fans that roll through the park in Seattle. How did you react to that when you were playing? Because I'm sure it was the case in the early 2000s, certainly in the early 90s. How many Blue Jay fans show up for these games?
Yeah, well, in the early, when the Sky Dome was the new thing, and it was Robbie, Alomar was at second. I remember Juan Guzman facing him early in my career. I remember those days, Stottlemyre, and I'm trying to think who was out of the pen? You had a real tough goal. Anyway, those are my early days.
Hanky and Ward came out of the pen.
Dwayne Ward was one of the first closers I saw as a big leaguer, where I kind of went back to the dugout and said, they don't have those closers in the minor leagues. The ball's moving a little bit different. Yeah. But I remember those days. I wasn't paying attention too much to the Blue Jays coming over the border and coming down to the Kingdome at the time. But now, especially in recent times, it's been a big thing. And the Blue Jays, since Vladdy and since Bo Bichette came up and they had that youth movement, there's been a lot of excitement brought back to the Blue Jays. And that's become a pretty, a mini rivalry. I don't think we're going to call it Yankee Boston of the early 2000s. No. But I think it's a mini rivalry, especially with the fans that come over. As a player, I'll tell you what, even if it's my hometown and that being Seattle, I'd welcome it. More fans, the better. And it doesn't matter to me if they're cheering for me or cheering for the opponent. It's about the entertainment value and about just having that buzz going on. So the Seattle team's leading their division. I'll tell you, Houston's right in their rear view. And a month ago, I had them dead and buried. And all of a sudden, Houston can't lose a game, and they're 2 games out. This Seattle team has really been scuffling. That 1 through 5, that rotation. Now I know Woo's on the IL right now, but pound for pound, 1 through 5, when they're all healthy, I think Seattle Mariners have as good a pitching staff as anyone in either league. But it doesn't go far beyond that. The bullpen is decent. I think they need a little help in the bullpen. But that offense has really been struggling, putting the onus on the young Julio Rodriguez, who I think is a generational type talent. But I forget sometimes that he's in his early 20s. You sign that big deal. And I know this kid, he puts a lot on his shoulders. And the only way you learn how to deal with that is with experience. And right now, I think he's trying to carry the load. I think he just drove in his 30th run last night, hit a home run, his 8th. He's way behind pace. A year ago, he started off really slow, and then he came on strong. Actually was an all-star a year ago. That hasn't panned out for him. A lot of the offseason acquisitions really haven't done much. But like I was on their radio station a few days ago. I said, well, everybody's hemming and hawing how they just lost this many in a row, and here comes Houston. I said, well, here's the good news. You're sitting here and you're winning the division. It's been a juggernaut, and Houston's had a hold of that division for years now. I said, so let's look at the positive start, and there's a long way to go. I don't know if you see what I see, but I've been looking at this 2024 and how the game is today. It's completely different than when I played, let alone the generation before me, where that 162 meant something. It was a long grind, and usually the king of the hill was standing at the end of the season. This current format with the 12 playoff spots, It's been as easy as ever, I think, to get to the postseason, and arguably as tough as ever to win a World Series, because you got to go through four sets of playoffs. I think the formula is get as healthy as you can right before the postseason, because injuries, let's be honest, in 2024, injuries, I've never seen injuries like this. It seems like every team, all their stars go down all year long. So I think the formula is getting a place at the table, getting one of those 12 spots, and being healthy. And once you get to that postseason, it's anybody's game. So I think the 162 as a player, I don't like that it's not as important. But I think as a fan, and I think entertainment value, I think it's a great thing. And I think it brings a lot of people to the game, having the format the way they do.
Jays Mariners tonight out in Seattle. He's a longtime major leaguer, longtime Mariner, and the host of the Brett Boone podcast. He is Brett Boone. Always great catching up with you, man. Great seeing you. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it. There's Brett Boone joining us here over FaceTime. And those really cool stories, man. And like he just gave us a great example of going to Atlanta. We win every year. This is what we do. Like, it's kind of amazing that, and even, you know, the Maddux, Smoltz, Glavine, Bobby Cox era, like that's a distant memory, yet they just won a World Series a few years ago. Yeah. Like, and they're a perennial playoff team, point. Like every single year. So there may have been a dip there for a while, but not substantially. Like, they've been pretty significant. You know, they've been a pretty significant player in Major League Baseball for a long, long time.
Well, and they won that World Series without Acuna.
That's right.
Right.
Just like if you ever want to bring up injuries as an excuse.
Acuna was out. They had a multitude of injuries, too. They had to replace their whole outfield.
Yeah.
Like at the deadline, Anthopoulos made, I think, 4 trades. All 4 played huge roles.
Yeah, Eddie Rosario, I think, was one
Yeah,
of those
that's
guys.
right. Yeah, no, they that was just an incredible run. Incredible run. Mailed In Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP is serving fish bowls and ice-cold pints on the patio all summer long. So grab your sunscreen and let's have ourselves a weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling. The semis is calling for France and for Spain. Mm-hmm. Germany's out. Portugal's out. We have 2 more quarterfinal matches tomorrow. Steven Caldwell will join us to help us tee those up. And Canada, Venezuela tonight. Argentina got through on penalties last night. What happens tonight? Canada, Venezuela. We'll tee it up. Stevie will join us in studio next. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Canada, Venezuela tonight, Copa America. You'll watch that game on TSN. Luke Wildman be a big part of that, and our next guest will be a big part of it as well. Here's our buddy Steven Caldwell back in studio. How you doing, Stevie?
Doing well, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well. So how are we feeling tonight? We're getting closer to kickoff. Canada, Venezuela. We've been hyping it, talking about how substantial this could be historically for the Canadian side, but how should Canadians be bracing for this match tonight?
I think everyone in Canada should be very positive and very optimistic about tonight's game. It's 2 evenly matched teams. I would say there's not a lot between Canada and Venezuela, but it's a game that Canada can win. If they play their best game, I really believe they'll win. I don't think there's much doubt in that. And it'll probably be tight and it'll be tense, and you just got to limit the mistakes and hope when you get your moments that Canada can be a little bit more clinical than we've seen them be in this tournament. That would be the big concern for me if I was Jesse Marsh. Like, when we get the chances, we got to score them, and so that'll be the emphasis tonight. I think getting in good positions and then being clinical when they get there.
Right. I think we're bracing for 0-0, 1-0, maybe penalties tonight. Is that what we should be bracing for in terms of the style of both teams and the way that they played throughout this tournament?
Yeah, I don't think either team will come out and go and try and win the game in the first half. I think we'll see 2 teams who play it pretty tight, play it safe, and don't want to make mistakes. So I expect the first half to be really tight, not a lot of space, and then second half, usually a game opens up, and it'll probably open up in the second half, and whoever gets that first goal will then just probably defend, try and hold the result. And I don't know if the other team will have enough to then break down the team that gets the opener. So like every game, but the first goal is going to be vitally important.
So what's your read on, why Canada has had this issue offensively? Like, is it a system? Is it a player? I mean, we Canadians seem to have a strength in terms of offensively inclined players. Guys who are capable of scoring goals. What is it that's holding them back from breaking loose here?
I think in many ways, it's just that final pass, that coolness at the right moment to activate on what you're trying to do. We seem to be a little bit anxious when the Canadians are in front of goal. They're just a touch tense. So to find the composure at the right time is vital. The chances are coming. They're getting in good spots.
Right.
They're getting in good areas, and final pass or quickness of decision making to get a shot away is just a little bit off. So you've got to be just that touch more clinical tonight, and really be sure when you get into the right areas and finish the attack off. That was what I would say. If Canada can be confident and can be sure and make a decision quickly and try and finish the attack off, I think they can win and score.
Steven Caldwell in studio. You got one for him, Strud?
I sure do. So as I'm watching the game tonight, I want to know which player on the offensive side or defensive side of the ball should I be watching for? Do you think could really have an impact on this game?
I think on the defensive side, I'll go with Moise Bombito. He's a young centre-back, plays for Colorado Rapids. He has been playing throughout this tournament. Very athletic centre-back, has a lot of upside, is still learning the game a little bit, but I've been very impressed with his performances, his mentality, his matureness to make the right decisions and to improve as this tournament's went on. So he's one that you can look out in the back line. He'll be playing centre-back, right centre-back tonight. And then it's hard to look past Jonathan David on the offensive side. He is probably Canada's best attacker. He's the one that got the goal against Peru. He's a player who's probably destined to land in the Premier League or Serie A. He's going to get a big move this summer. So he is a huge player. He can do most parts of the game, but a lot of his work gets done outside the box and trying to help the team, support the team. So tonight, I hope he's a little bit more selfish and he can keep his best work for the top half of the pitch in front of goal.
Steven Caldwell with us in studio.
Well, Steven, we always talk in hockey, are you generating the chances? Are the chances coming? Do you think Canada is generating enough chances, enough quality chances, and just not getting that last push you're talking about?
I think so. I think it's a tough tournament to score goals. We've seen it from other teams as well. We saw it from the US.
Last night.
Yeah, last night
last
as well.
night.
And obviously the US went out the tournament and probably on paper they have better players than Canada. So it's not an easy tournament to score goals. It's the style of football is broken. There's a lot of fouls. There's a lot of gamesmanship between the teams, which everyone loves, everyone's enjoying, but it's very spicy. So Canada's just got to concentrate on doing what they do well. I think they've got in good positions, but like I said, it's that last pass. You've got to be incisive when you're in the right spots, and Canada need to be like that tonight if they want to get that opening goal. And I think getting the opening goal would really settle them down, give them the confidence to hopefully go on and win the game. I mean, this is the biggest game Canada's had. And, well, how long? Probably since they won the Gold Cup, which was 24 years ago.
2000.
You could kind of feel that in that Argentina game where if they had gotten that one goal in that first half, you're like, the game changes.
And they got their chances. And Argentina, for me, are the best team in the world. You know, they were world number one. They're the reigning World Cup champions. And Canada got good chances against them. So they can create chances. It's just, you got to take them.
Finish.
The chances that they had, they need to take them. So hopefully when that first chance comes along tonight, Canada put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks to that Belgium game too, the first of the World Cup, where I thought
as well.
They were all over them, and they couldn't pounce, they couldn't actually score. Steven Caldwell in studio. Belgium's long gone in terms of the Euros, but now I guess Portugal's out too. Germany's out too. I know you've been high on Spain. I believe you said you thought the likelihood of whoever was going to win that Spain-Germany game would be favored to win the rest of the tournament. Are you still standing by that?
I am. I'm standing by that. I had a little bit of wager with Kevin Colban. He had Spain. I had Germany. So I'm a bit down after today's result. But no, when you beat the host nation, you get a lot of confidence from that.
Yeah.
Especially in a host nation like Germany, who go into any tournament as one of the favourites. So Spain will be strong. They came through a tough game today. They weren't at their best. I think a lot of that was down to Germany. But to win that game and for it not to go to penalty kicks, to win it right at the end there in extra time is huge. The next task for them, because they're in the tough side of the draw, is France, who are not a good watch.
They can't score. They didn't again today, but they're winning penalties.
What is it? They've got 2 on goals and a penalty out open play so far. But they're so tough. They're so tough at the back. They've got a great goalkeeper. Nobody can score against them either. So that'll be an interesting one. I think Spain will dominate the ball. The question is, can they break them down? And again, you look at that side of the draw and say, well, I think Spain will come through that, but whoever comes through that will be, I think, a unanimous favourite going into the final.
Well, and we were talking about that, in terms of the matches tomorrow. It's England, Switzerland, Netherlands, Turkey. England's a favorite, not substantially, but they're favored. And Netherlands, I think, substantially favored over the Turks. But England, like with their history, we talk about the Leafs in Toronto all the time, and it's, they won the World Cup in '66, I believe it was. Yeah. And they haven't won anything ever since. But every year you're like, this is the year, and they get so much coverage and there's so much hype. And, because the English players are all riddled, all playing throughout the Premier League. We all know them over here. They get so much attention. Yet the draw set up beautifully for them.
It is.
Why will it change this year, if it will? What is England going to do differently that makes you think maybe they finally actually break through here?
I don't feel confident they can break through this year. I felt more confident in previous years, 3 years ago, when they were so close. They don't play at their full potential. It's hard to pinpoint. A lot of flack gets thrown at Gareth Southgate's feet. Is it his fault? Is it the players? It's the age-old, doesn't matter what sport we're talking about, guys. It's the same thing. Is it the coaches? Is it the players? The players play great for their clubs. The players are world-class. Bellingham, Real Madrid, Foden, Manchester City, Kane, Bayern Munich. We could go on and on. They're the best players in the world. Some of the best players in the world. But when they play for England, they look tense. They look like they got the weight of the world on their shoulders.
You think that's the history and the media and all that?
So the media is terrible back there. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just on top of them the whole time. And then what happens is there's real factions, and they sort of get a bit of chip on their shoulder, and I think that affects them. Southgate had done a great job previously to stop that, to really work hard with the media, and there was a lot of positivity. But this tournament has been toxic, and most of that's been because of Southgate. They've just got to come out tomorrow and have a big game, play a good performance against Switzerland. They can beat Switzerland if they play well, but we've not seen anything like the England that we expected at this tournament.
What's the issue with Southgate from the English perspective, the media and fan base? Is it the tactics? Is it the starting 11? Is it, the players? What is the issue here?
A bit of everything. I think he's too negative. I think he just picks, he's got his favourites, which every manager kind of has, but he's so negative that the tactics that he picks, he almost never lets the leash off these guys. He never lets them go, and that to me is a big issue when you've got top players like Kane and Foden and Bellingham and Saka and even Palmer, the guys that they can bring off the bench, the impact that they can have. They never look like themselves, because I think this mindset that Southgate sets them out there with is very pragmatic. It's a lot of players behind the ball, and it's a lot of safe backwards square passes. And I really hope, I'll be a little flabbergasted if they do, but I really hope they come out tomorrow and go for it. If they go for it, they'll beat Switzerland. And if they beat Switzerland well tomorrow, then they got it. I mean, there'll be favourites against the Dutch or against Turkey. So why not go for it? Why not, have a bit of a go? So I'm hoping that there's a rumour that it's going to be a 3-4-3 formation. They're going to change his shape, which should get the best out of Bellingham and Foden. So hopefully they go for it tomorrow. Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of, the host country, like you mentioned, Germany, the fact that they're out? But, these stadiums, it doesn't matter where you're going to play this tournament. It's just electric. Yeah. But what are you hearing from back home in Europe and all that in terms of kind of the vibe around these stadiums?
Well, Germany's always been a fantastic place to go and watch a football game. It's German supporters are amazing, but what has been so nice about this tournament, the Euros, is we've saw the colour back again since COVID. We were in Qatar.
That's right.
We didn't see the fans in Qatar. There was Argentina were well supported. Morocco were well supported. The Dutch stayed away. The English pretty much stayed away. The French stayed away. So we did not see that European flavour in Qatar like we usually see at a World Cup. This Euros, we've saw it in abundance, haven't we? We saw Romania, we've saw the Dutch. The Dutch always look great. The Danish, it doesn't matter who we talk about. Everybody's been Scotland.
Yes.
Probably the best supporters in
they
the world.
showed up.
Scottish
Absolutely.
Every one of them absolutely blind drunk. But, Scotland played their part.
Yeah.
They played their part.
They sure did.
So that's been the big thing about this Euros. It's been the colour, it's been the crowds, it's been the atmospheres, and the football's always going to get a little bit tense and tight in the knockouts. But I think some of the unsung heroes, the smaller nations, Slovenia and Slovakia and Romania.
The best.
It's been great. They
It's
were
the
right
best.
in every game.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, I have not been to the Euros. I haven't been to the World Cup. I've been in Europe while it's been going on, or the finals of the World Cup. It's just electric wherever you are.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. I remember I was in London, I want to say it was in 2010. So I think that would have been Spain, I think, won the World Cup that year.
Spain won South Africa.
And it was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
In London, obviously, and
Yeah.
England wasn't in the final. And it was just electric everywhere you went. Just incredible.
Yeah, everyone gets behind it in Europe. Everybody loves it.
It's incredible.
Yeah, the crowds will be out for England tomorrow, and
Yep.
and hopefully, for their sake, that they'll have a victory.
Yeah, there'll be some patios downtown. I'm sure that'll be well represented, too. I'm pretty sure throughout the city of Toronto. There's no question about that. All right, Canada, Venezuela. Let's see what we got tonight.
Big one. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, everybody watches.
We will on TSN. Say hi to Luke and the boys for
Will
us.
do.
All right,
Thanks,
there you go.
guys.
Steven Caldwell. He'll have the call tonight with Luke Wildman, Canada, Venezuela. The Euros continuing, obviously, tomorrow as well with 2 more quarters. It's going to be great. Catch it all on TSN. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Mail It In Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP serving fish bowls and ice cold pints on the patio all summer long, so grab your sunscreen. Let's have ourselves a weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling. Most certainly is. For the Canada game tonight, you can't beat that, man. This is the definition of Boston Pizza night tonight. Got Canada, Venezuela. It's like what I love about the summer and the weather is that when it gets dark, you can be outside on a patio at midnight, shorts and T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like still 25 degrees. That's what I'm looking for. That's what we're talking about. Right, Strud? I'm sure it's the same thing out in Edmonton. What kind of weather are we talking right now?
Yeah, we got the sun out here too, right? It kind of heats up in the summertime, so we go for it all.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm a huge fan. I love the patio. I love it. The beer just tastes a little bit better.
It does.
You know, gets a little sweaty on the outside of the cup, and then maybe a beer, not a beer, a pizza.
Yep.
Watching the game like tonight
Can't
is
beat
a
it.
fun night to be at. We got a BP's just down the road from our house here.
I love it. Can't beat it. Tonight's the night. And you got Canada, Venezuela, and Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm taking Canada. I'm on Canada. They're minus 112. Venezuela's minus 108. It's basically a pick 'em. And I think that's appropriate. It's a neutral site match. It's in Dallas. I think Venezuela will be well represented in terms of the amount of fans there. There's a lot of nerves considering the magnitude of the match for both teams. But I like where Canada's mojo's at right now. I'm on Canada, and I'm going to take them to win tonight, minus 112. Jays in Seattle tonight before the All-Star game, where Vladdy's on his way. I haven't heard anything about the home run derby. Vladdy's, think he'll do it again? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. I guess so. If you're a Blue Jay fan, why not? Don't you want to be represented? Give us some positivity. Vladdy, get in the home run derby, win that thing again. There's your big story for the summer.
Maybe
Right?
it pops them. Maybe get some, sometimes things like that get you a little juice, right?
I
Feel
like
good
that
about
idea.
yourself and
Yeah.
let's look for a little positive action here.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of positivity online in terms of your Oilers out there, Strud, with, is Rashog bothering you? Are you guys doing an emergency pod in 15 minutes? Or
I did one during the break.
Okay, good. That's great. You should. I mean, they Got Your Back podcast. They'll be all over this, of course. And Ryan McLeod, with a prospect, traded to Buffalo for Matt Savoie. And it's an interesting trade.
I still don't really get it for Buffalo. Struddy, how much upside offensively do you think Ryan McLeod has? We know he's fast.
I think that he is very fast, and he plays fast, and not always getting pucks to the net.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's disruptive everywhere on the ice. But I don't think he's a natural offensive threat. Where I think Savoie is, he's very offensive. He thinks offensive. He's fast, makes plays. Not as big. I guess if you're Savoie, you got traded to Oilers. I don't see him as a third or fourth line player. Jonas, you might disagree with me, but so in the top six, where do I fit in? So I think that I'm guessing for him, he starts in the minors. Mm-hmm. There will be injuries. You get the call up, and when you get that chance, you show what you can play. Doesn't mean you're going to be there all year. Doesn't mean you won't be in the minors all year. But look at Logan Stankoven. I think people are comparing. I like that.
He's good.
I like that. You need that. You got to have that. Be ready when your chance comes. Don't Don't complain about not getting a chance. When you get your chance, you're ready. You come in to deliver, because he can think. He thinks the game really well, very quick.
Yeah, and I think this may not be what their plan is here with this trade, but he becomes an option to possibly flip at the deadline next year as well.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, again, I'm not hoping that's the case because I think he's a St. Albert boy, is he not? Strudwick, I think he is.
Well, another option here, guys. What if Skinner's only here for 1 year and Savoie shows he can play?
Right.
Does he automatically get that spot? Now I know you're asking a lot, but maybe, and he's a cheaper. He's he's a little bit cheaper than Skinner. So like it's Jeff Jackson, got to give the guy credit, man. For a guy who doesn't want the job, doesn't want to be the GM, he sure is acting like a really good one right now.
I know. It's like maybe he should get something wrong here or do something stupid so people are like, you got to move aside so we can bring in a GM, because I do sense that online. Again, it's not a perfect science, but seeing a number of people in Edmonton wondering why would Jackson not just be the GM? And it's not like he's making all these moves on his own, right? There's a staff out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, selling guys to come back. Like Henry got a taste of it and wanted to stay. Brown, I kind of get the impression that was a sneaky 2-year deal that was in, because it was a 1-year deal with the bonus that carried over and he signed back there for $1 million. I think Connor was going to stay there. I think Janmark was probably going to stay there. So good.
Even that Janmark deal is like nothing.
Really cheap. Yeah. Like really smart plays. I'm not downplaying that. But those guys wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if Jeff Jackson twisted their arm and convinced them. I think they were waiting for him to call them. But when you get into the trade aspect of things, that's a different story. And I think he factored in largely in hiring Chris Knobloch.
Maybe agents are the way to go for run your teams.
Well,
finalists.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to play. Bill Zito, Jeff Jackson.
Be. I mean, Jackson was a player, and Jackson.
He was in a front office here.
And he was a front office guy here.
But still.
But what do you think happens with Ken Holland? Struddy, do you think he ends up somewhere else, or
what is he? Almost 70 years old. There's always the rumors of him going around to Columbus. I think a guy like that, it just burns inside you, right? You're always just trying to do it. So maybe he joins a team as an advisor or support, but at some point also, don't you just want to enjoy what you've done? You just kick back, play golf more often. But I don't know if those guys are wired like that. I think they're just.
I don't think so.
Starving for the battle all the time.
Yeah, I know. Let someone else step in there, right?
But it's you can't relax. You can't just I
know.
Competitive fire.
And especially if people are knocking on your door. I don't think Ken Holland is flying into Columbus and asking John Davidson for a job, if that's where it's. Although I don't see why it would be there. It could be with Don Waddell, though. I don't know why he would go there. But usually it's the other way. I'm trying to get out of it, or I'm relaxing, and then guys are calling you, and you're like, all right, fine, I'll accept the gig. And that's probably what would end up happening with Holland. I don't think he would be campaigning for a job. It's that someone would want to bring him in, even as an advisor. Those, you can still make some money, be a part of a team, scout, live wherever you want to live, and just basically going for meetings once a month, checking with the GM, whatever they need from you. That's a great gig.
No pressure.
Unreal
scrutiny.
Gig. The advisor to the GM is such a great gig.
I didn't tell him to do that. That wasn't my idea.
I didn't advise that. That was not my advice.
I don't know what this guy's doing.
Not my advice.
I told him to think about it before he did it.
Exactly. My advice was actually not to do that. But I'm just the advisor over here. What do you want from me? All right, Strud. Good seeing you, buddy. Have yourself a great weekend. Thanks
Enjoy the game time. I'm fired up for this game, buddy.
I can't wait, too, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Canada, Venezuela on TSN. I cannot wait for kickoff.
Good thing you got your liquor, too.
I did. I got a couple bottles of wine, so I'm set. I'm gonna
sale?
I'm going to pop a bottle of wine tonight and watch the match. That's precisely
Went to 3
what
stores to find it on sale.
That's right. I found it. I finally found it. Shout out. We got it.
You guys
all right, boys.
Miles.
Great seeing you guys. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your weekends. We're back Monday at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.